Welcome to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'm Ryan Thomas, of course. Today is Wednesday. This is a pre-recorded edition of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. And per usual, I like to hop on here. And obviously, we're in the thick of things as far as the preseason hype for this Buffalo Bills team. I'm going to talk about the preseason hype for these Buffalo Bills in this episode of the show. Today I got a busy day ahead of me. I'm on not one, not two, but three podcasts today. Joining Charlie Gross, joining CJ DeSimone. Busy day for me. And I felt like, you know what? Prior to joining Charlie Gross, prior to joining CJ DeSimone, I wanted to hop on here and just provide you Bills Mafia members with the simple thoughts that I have on what I have witnessed, what I have seen thus far in terms of Buffalo Bills preseason hype. The preseason hype for this season for the Buffalo Bills is at an all-time high. Why is that? Why are the Bills rated by Vegas, rated by writers, journalists, sports analysts all across the nation as the favorite to win the 2022-2023 season/Super Bowl? I reshared that the USA Today believes that the Buffalo Bills will have the best record in the National Football League with a record of 15-2. That's what they believe. They believe that. They believe that the Bills will have the best record in the National Football League this season. What do I believe? Well, I've talked about my expectations for this season really since April, and my expectations have not wavered. My expectations have not changed in terms of where I believe this team can be heading into this upcoming season. What I believe is that this team is on the precipice of a massive season, an unprecedented season in Buffalo Bills history. The last time the Buffalo Bills played in a Super Bowl, it was 1993. And I believe every team has their year. The NFL is the most competitive league in professional sports, and each season you have one team that dominates the year, another team, that the balance for power, the tug of war for power within the NFL is consistently different. And that's what makes those teams in the early 90s so unprecedented, in the sense that they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. Yeah, they lost all 4 of them. But you ask yourselves, in this era of NFL football, will a team go to 4 straight Super Bowls? And with NFL free agency, with all the things at play for these organizations, as far as whether they can or can't keep a player, the answer to that, I think, is hell no. I don't see any team going to 4 straight Super Bowls in a row. But the Buffalo Bills did it then, and the Buffalo Bills have the capability to be contenders for a long time with this roster that has been assembled. As we've seen these last 2 seasons, the Buffalo Bills have been in the running of knocking on the door towards a Super Bowl appearance. So I ask and answer the question, why is the hype so massive for these Buffalo Bills? Well, number one, they've been knocking on the door these last 2 years, as I just mentioned. They lost 2 straight seasons, ended their season to the Kansas City Chiefs 2 years in a row. And the Kansas City Chiefs have also been that team that has been battling for supremacy in the AFC, leading the way in the AFC. Leading the way in the AFC as one of those teams that is an empire of talent. A mountain of talent is within that roster. Despite now each year being different. I talked about that moments ago, talking about the tug of war, the battle for power, and that battle for power has been basically won or lost by the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs or the Cincinnati Bengals. If you were to tell me 2 years ago, post-draft night where the Cincinnati Bengals drafted Joe Burrow If you were to tell me that 2 years down the road, the Bengals would be playing in the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow as their quarterback, I would have told you were crazy. I go back to that Super Bowl, I go back to last season, and I say to myself, I don't quite believe Cincinnati was the best team in the AFC last year. They were just the team that just so happened to be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. Didn't necessarily mean that they were the best team in the AFC. Just one team stumbled, the Chiefs. Another team stumbled, the Bills. And I truly believe it could very well be the year that out of the teams that stumbled, the Bills and the Chiefs have had their due. The Chiefs have had their day. They've had their moments. They've won their Super Bowl. They've been to another. Went to 2 straight Super Bowls in a row. Almost made it 3 straight Super Bowls in a row. And I like to think that the game with the Rams and Chiefs would have been just as entertaining, if not more entertaining. And I'd like to think that the Chiefs would have come out with a win in that game rather than the Rams against the Bengals, which is what happened. And I'd like to think that the Buffalo Bills would have defeated the Rams where the Bengals could not. Maybe I'm on the outside looking in with that thought process, but that's just how I see the talent level of these teams. I do not realistically believe that the Cincinnati Bengals were the best team in the AFC last year. It was just that they were the team that made the least amount of mistakes in the playoffs, and that's what it takes to get to a Super Bowl. But out of those 3 teams, out of the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Bills, which team got incrementally better? Which team is going from success to recreating their success in a bigger and better way? And yeah, I thought the Chiefs had a very interesting offseason. I can't quite say that the Chiefs got better, but I certainly can't say the Chiefs got worse. One thing we do know is that the Chiefs did trade one of the biggest weapons in Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins, and we know what type of player Tyreek Hill was, is, and always will be, to that quote-unquote mini dynasty that took place in Kansas City. But trading a guy away like that will change things. Trading a guy away like that will recreate the expectations for that team. And the expectations for the Chiefs are going to be high every single year due to Pat Mahomes being your quarterback. But what identity change will we see with the Chiefs? We know we'll see one. We know we'll see an identity shift, an identity change in terms of how they attack the opposition. Whereas the Buffalo Bills, they're coming back with the same guys that brought them to the dance of the AFC divisional round, the AFC championship against Kansas City 2 years ago. And they're also coming back with some new pieces, some new dimensions to this team, namely O.J. Howard and James Cook. I think those 2 additions to the offense will be essential additions to the offense that will provide a diverse attack to the opposition offensively. A diverse attack. And what I mean by that is last year and the year before, Buffalo's passing game was second to none. I mean, their passing game outside of Kansas City was the best in the NFL these last 2 seasons. And I know Cincinnati has something to say about that, but continuously, successfully, these last 2 years, the Chiefs and Bills have had the 2 best passing games, arguably, in the NFL. And now the Bills bring in more pieces to complement the pieces they already have, while the Kansas City Chiefs traded away their big piece in Tyreek Hill and also added some additions, but additions that will reshape how they attack the opposition. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster. You take those 2 additions, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, both guys are 6'2" or higher, 6'2" or taller. Whereas Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, those guys are, and Mecole Hardman, they're more known for their speed. Mecole's still there, Sammy's gone to Green Bay, and obviously Tyreek is in Miami. But Kansas City got bigger. Did they get better? We don't know the answer to that. We won't know the answer to that until the season begins. Whereas the Buffalo Bills added more pieces offensively. So you could say that Buffalo's offense offensively could be even better than what it was last year or the year before, with how Ken Dorsey, the new offensive coordinator, can now attack the opposition. James Cook is a very polarizing player in terms of what some fans expect from him and due to what some fans don't expect from him in his rookie season. I've heard all sorts of takes on James Cook. And you guys can fire away your takes on James Cook in the comment section below this video, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or whether you're tuning in on Facebook. Or tweet at me at Ryan Thomas Take. Let me know what you think of your expectations for James Cook and the Buffalo Bills run game. Because this is something that I've talked about on a lot of episodes of this show over the course of the last year, and my prayers were answered that the Buffalo Bills would add a running back that would add a new dimension to this offense, and James Cook does that. But what are the numbers going to look like for James Cook? We won't know to the end of the year. What are my expectations for the numbers of one James Cook? I expect James Cook to be a PPR, quote-unquote PPR monster for fantasy football purposes. Because they want to take away a little bit of that athleticism that Josh Allen does have. It's not taking away athleticism, it's taking away the opportunity for a defense to chime in on Allen while Allen is in the scrambling mode, playing, quote-unquote street ball, like what was said about Pat Mahomes, inexplicably by somebody that doesn't matter. So I think that the hype is so massive for this team and the Buffalo Bills, being that they only added to their team. The subtractions: Cole Beasley, Jerry Hughes. Yeah, Jerry Hughes, longtime veteran of this roster. Cole Beasley had quite a few really good seasons with the team, but they are replaceable pieces, and they were replaced, arguably with better options. Options that were already on the roster in Isaiah McKenzie, Jamison Crowder, Tavon Austin, who I've heard very good things about in this training camp, as well as Isaiah McKenzie, and Jamison Crowder might be on the outside looking in. I tweeted about this today. Jamison Crowder, they're talking about him as the best ability is availability, and he's missed 3 straight days of practice. You're in the shark tank of the roster, which is the wide receiver position, and you're trying to make the team, battling for a position on the roster, and you're missing essential time in training camp. If you're missing time in training camp, it's going to be very tough for you to make the team. Nonetheless, you're battling. You're battling. And where I'm going with this is Jerry Hughes, he goes, longtime veteran of the team. He heads to Houston to end his career. TCU alum. Jerry did a lot of great things in a Buffalo Bills uniform. He was a solid vet for us for quite some time. He was a member of the Cold Front. I don't know if you guys remember those T-shirts, but they had Mario Williams, Kyle Williams, Marcel Darius, and Jerry Hughes. All those guys are now gone. Jerry Hughes was the last one to remain on the roster. And you replace that player with a guy that quite possibly could be wearing a gold jacket when his career is all said and done, in Von Miller. And Von Miller has been a proven commodity in this league essentially since day one, and Von Miller has been a key factor in not one but 2 Super Bowl champion teams in the Denver Broncos and the LA Rams. Von Miller, though, 33 years old, what version of Von Miller will we see compared to the version that most expect? Will it be the version that most expect? Or will it be an even better version than what most expect? Or will it be a lesser version than what most expect? I know one thing. Von Miller at 33 is not the average 33-year-old NFL defensive end. Von Miller at 35 is not the average 35-year-old defensive end. Von Miller is built different, and Von Miller has a pedigree that is undeniable. So bringing in a player like that tells the rest of the league, as well as the team, that you mean business. You mean business. And I think going back to the last time we watched the Buffalo Bills play football, and I talked about this specifically with Zach Bell, Z-Bot of the Buffalo Fanatics, if in fact you have the version of Josh Allen that we last saw against Kansas City start the season in LA and pick up right where he left off, then boy, we're off to the races to start the season. And that's a big ask. It's a lot to ask for a player to play his best football after being off for essentially, 6-7 months playing that same football. It's undeniably you see what I'm saying. It doesn't quite make sense that I would hope for that, but crazier things have happened in terms of when a player has that breakthrough moment. Can he maintain it? Can he make it consistent to the effort, to the results that we see week in and week out? That's a real question, and I think Josh Allen is ready, willing, and able to give us a real answer to that question. And I mentioned, the new additions and how they can or can't, or how they should or shouldn't meet expectations. And I look at the rosters all across the NFL, and you would be hard-pressed to find a team as deep as the Buffalo Bills, especially on offense, whether it's wide receiver, whether it's tight end. And I mentioned O.J. Howard. Now, I go back to what the New England Patriots had with a guy by the name of Rob Gronkowski and another guy by the name of Aaron Hernandez. Football talk here, okay? Football talk only here when referring to Gronk and Hernandez and what they brought to the table. I'm just talking about that stuff. They were such an athletic mismatch for the opposition. They could not be stopped. In order to cover one, another was going to be left open. And the Buffalo Bills have, dare I say, I'm not going to put them on the same wavelength as, or the same pedestal rather, Knox and Howard. I'm not going to do that comparing them towards Gronk and Hernandez. But what I will say is this. In my lifetime of 30 years, the Buffalo Bills have never, ever had a great tight end, let alone two good ones at the same time. Let me repeat that. The Buffalo Bills have never had a great tight end, and yet right here, right now, as it stands on the roster, they have two good ones in Dawson Knox and O.J. Howard. A lot can be said for that. A lot can be digested there. Because when you have O.J. Howard and Dawson Knox on the field at the same time, defenses are going to have problems. Defenses aren't going to be prepared for that. And truthfully, that's one of the many factors to Ken Dorsey calling the shots that I think he will actually use to his advantage. I don't quite know whether or not Brian Dable would have used those pieces in the ways that it appears as if Ken Dorsey will. And following the team during training camp is one thing, but hearing their thoughts after practice is just as good, if not better, than watching an entire practice at St. John Fisher, because these guys are revved up. These guys are ready to go. These guys believe that they have something to behold here. Something is clicking. And it's very easy to buy into the hype as a player. It's very easy to buy into the hype as a fan. But you have to look at last season. And I'm going to go down this road. Might not be a road that people want to go down, but in talking about the Buffalo Bills preseason hype being at an all-time high last season, the expectations were very high, and largely the expectations were not met by myself, and I think the majority of the fans would say that were the expectations met last year? No, they were not. They were not, because last year we went to the AFC, 2 years ago I should say, we went to the AFC title game against the Chiefs. We came up short. This next season, we won the division, yes, but we won the division by one game over the New England Patriots. We lost games that we shouldn't have lost. We put ourselves in a situation that prevented us from having the number one seed. The expectation this year is not that they will win the Super Bowl for me. It's not just about the Super Bowl. You can win the Super Bowl a wide variety of ways as the last seed to make the playoffs. No, my expectations, my hype is making it to the playoffs as the AFC East division winner, as well as holding the number one seed within the division, as well as winning the AFC, as well as winning the Super Bowl, which is essentially being the number one team, one of the number one teams in football, the other being the number one team in the NFC. Rarely do we see the number one team in the AFC and the number one team in the NFC meet one another in the Super Bowl. But I expect, my expectations, my hype is hyping up the Bills to be the number one seed in the AFC, the number one AFC East team, and the AFC champions and the Super Bowl champions. That is my hype of the Buffalo Bills. So is the Buffalo Bills preseason hype at an all-time high? You're damn right it is. Should it be? You're damn right it should be. Because if the expectations aren't high, what the hell are you playing for? I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page. Buffalo Bills football season cannot get here soon enough.